Are we still there?
Yep. So we've it's now 12 o'clock. We'll just wait a minute or so.
Can you still hear me, Hugh?
Yes, Luke. Okay, well, I think we'll start. So thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. I appreciate there are a lot of available webinars available at the moment, so we're all spoilt for choice. There are three different organisations represented today. My name's Hugh Thomas Davis from Hesys Sustainability Service. I'm a sustainability advocate. We have Luke Jamieson from Aylesbury Box, who's the commercial manager there. And we have Dave Beasley from Oxford Office Furniture, who's the CEO at his organisation. And he's going to be talking about, in fact, I'll go to the agenda and I'll tell you what we're going to be talking about. So we'll do an introduction. I'll talk a little bit about the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and particularly focus on two goals, 12 and 13. I'll be showing some examples, and then Luke will talk about packaging and the sustainability of the products that they offer. And then Dave will be talking through a case study on Oxford Office Furniture and their use of electric vehicles for deliveries. Then I'll be talking about sustainability business case and taking first steps, and then there'll be a time for Q&A. So just a little bit about Hesys Sustainability Services. We're an organisation that supports, inspires and helps to facilitate organisations to help to build a more sustainable future. We are aligned with the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and our particular focus is to align and support SMEs to align with the relevant SDGs for their particular organisation. And we help organisations benchmark, measure and support and report sustainability targets. So I came across this graph, which I thought was interesting. And this talked about the global risks for 2020 at the beginning of the year, and this was published in January. So things have changed a lot in a short period of time. But the big issue that was worrying the World Economic Forum in January was climate action failure. And I think that's still a huge issue for us. They did also mention in infectious diseases as a high impact concern, but likelihood was down at a fairly low level, just over between 2.5 and 3. So clearly everything's changed in the meantime. Climate action is still very much an issue, but the immediate concern clearly is COVID-19 and the infectious diseases. However, as I heard on a call this morning, infectious diseases you can deal with a vaccine. you cannot vaccinate against climate action failure. So climate change is a huge issue. So a little bit about the Sustainable Development Goals. These are 17 goals that were adopted by the United Nations member states in 2015. And essentially they're a call to action to end poverty, to protect the planet, and to ensure that all people enjoy peace and prosperity. And there's a time frame on this as well. So the time frame is that these goals and the targets are focused on 2030. So that's only 10 years from now. And there's a lot to be done in the 10 years that we've got between now and then. And although there are 17 goals, they broke down into 3. You can break them down in multiple different ways, but I've broken them down here into environmental goals, employee/stakeholder goals, and community or societal goals. Now, the ones that obviously we're going to be concerned about today are the ones on the environmental area, so 12 and 13. But I think it's also worth pointing out that these goals are also reported on a national basis. So there are some there's a national scorecard. We can see how the UK ranks compared to other countries. And actually we're number 13, which you could say is not bad, but clearly, you know, we want to do better and we want to raise the bar for everybody. And the reason that I'm particularly focused on this is that you can see the activity that's happening in the large organizations, but for SMEs, I think there is still a need for them to look at these and to see how they can support these particular goals. The other thing I was going to mention with regard to the SDGs was that although many organizations support them, and I'll be giving an example of MERCK, which is a pharmaceutical company, there are ones that intersect with their specific area of business. So MERCK, who's a pharmaceutical company, are focused on goal number 3, good health and well-being, and they support poorer communities with their products, their drugs, and their medicines in a variety of different ways. So goal 3 is one that they're really focused on, but they also are very concerned about other things as well. And just looking at this from another dimension, the most common SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals for business, vary by region. But there are some commonalities, as you can see. Asia Pacific is the top line here. And on the right-hand side, you'll see goals 12 and 13. Europe has also got 12 and 13 as the first and third priorities in their list of most common ones. And North America also have 12 and 13. So they are very important goals, and the ones that we'll focus on today are these 2 here. So goal 12, which is predominantly, as far as this presentation is concerned, about waste reduction, and goal 13, which is predominantly about greenhouse gas reduction. And the intention here is that the key to this and the importance of this is about being on a journey. It's about being on this journey to better. We're not aiming for perfection. The goalposts will always move anyway, but the intention is to get on the start of that particular journey. So this is a slide that's come from the Greenhouse Gas Protocol. What it is it's a short explanation of what greenhouse gases are and how they fall into 3 different scopes. So scope 1, which is the one in the middle, is the reporting company's scope, and it shows that the greenhouse gases that are reported on Scope 1 are direct emissions from owned or controlled resources. So these can be company vehicles, they can be company facilities. So for example, if you have a diesel powered fleet of trucks, then that would be a Scope 1 emission that would need to be reported. Scope 2 is indirect. So these are typically emissions from the generation of purchased utilities, typically like electricity or steam or heating and cooling. And then scope 3, excuse me, are value chain emissions. And these include things like business travel, employee commuting, so the cars or whatever people use to get to and from and work. But they also include other things like the use of sold products. So if you're a car manufacturer, your scope 3 emissions are going to be very significant, because clearly your cars, as long as they're traditional internal combustion engine cars, then they will fall into that category. And generally speaking, the scope 3 emissions are very significantly larger than scope 1 or 2. So just some examples, we'll be brief on these, but some examples here. MERCK is as I mentioned earlier, a American pharmaceutical company. And I just picked this as a random example, but they have a focus on goals 12 and 13 as well. So their climate goals, they're looking at greenhouse gas emissions, and they want to reduce their scope 1 and scope 2 greenhouse gas emissions by at least 40% from the 2015 levels. So they're taking their 2015 and they are going to be reducing them from there. They're also got renewable energy target. So by 2025, at least 50% of purchased electricity will come from renewable sources. So you may say that's not a particularly ambitious goal. I'm not commenting on that, but nevertheless, that's the intention that they're taking, and they are hopefully going to exceed on that. And then on the second goal that they've got on here around waste. By 2025, no more than 20% of our global operational waste will be sent to landfills and incinerators. And the reason that I highlight that is that if you're a supplier supplying a large organization like MERCK, and you're shipping goods in non-sustainable packaging, that will end up in their landfill or incinerators. And that's not obviously helping them achieve their targets and their objectives. So clearly, there are some implications for suppliers here. GSK, obviously a company that's closer to home, based in the UK. They also have goals 12 and 13 on their list of SDGs that they're tracking. Goal 12, they're looking to repurpose their waste for beneficial uses. So this would be the reuse and recycle element, which is obviously hugely important, because it means, again, they don't want this waste to end up in landfill. And they also are looking at 60% of their power to come from renewable sources by 2030. So again, a big change for them as an organization, moving to a much more sustainable source of power. When it comes to carbon emissions, they're looking at, again, a reduction of 20% by 2030. But they're also looking at their scope 3 emissions as well. So they will start to scrutinize very carefully all aspects of scope 3, which could be their business travel or their employee commuting, but I suspect it'll also include the value chain emissions as well. And they also mention later on in this particular piece of text, the supply chain makes up the largest share, 45% of their Scope 3 value chain carbon footprint. So clearly, the suppliers that they've got are going to be under their scrutiny to see how they can reduce their carbon footprint too. And just a short SME example. This is a company called Red Ink. They are a supplier of office stationery and office products. They are a sustainable organization. They have adopted 8 goals, SDGs, and 8 of these, including 12 and 13. But what it's done is they're also trying to partner with other organisations that share the same sort of values. So the World Wildlife Fund signed a stationery contract with them, and also they are keen to do what they can to offset and to support other environmental objectives. So they're planting 25,000 trees by 2021, and they will fund the protection of 12,000 acres of rainforest. So a few examples there of the way that different organisations are looking at these particular goals. So Luke, over to you.
Thanks, Hugh. Thank you very much. And hello, everybody. I'm Luke. Hugh, can you hear me? Does it sound coming through? Okay?
Yes. Carry on.
So I'm Luke, and I run the Aylesbury Box Company. I run it with my brother and a team of about 30 people. We've got about 500 customers that we look after, and we design and manufacture and deliver bespoke boxes and packaging. The company's been doing this since about 1986, but Matt and I have been involved since 2000. So that's about 20 years we've been doing this now. Before that, I studied economics and geography and environmental science at university, and after that, I then worked in the reinsurance industry, simulating natural disasters. So there's a bit of connection with what I did before coming to Aylesbury Box, and is why I'm particularly interested in environmental sustainability. Hugh, thanks for inviting me. And we were just talking earlier, actually, just before this whole thing started, that to be frank, preparing for this has been an excellent opportunity for me to spend some time thinking about and getting information that's really important about this subject for Aylesbury Box and the messages that we give to our customers and our prospects. So we have an environmental policy. We've had one for a long time, and we've always held it important. But some of the detail that we hand out, to be frank, after talking to Hugh, was a bit thin. And I've been able to really strengthen the messages recently and clarify things. And I hope that I'm going to be able to clarify them for you today as well. So, can I have the next slide, Hugh? Thanks. So goal 12 is what I want to talk about. And in my opinion, the UN Sustainability Development Plan is actually a great way to focus and give some structure to what we do for the environment, and also to convince our clients and your customers of this too. With a focus on packaging, I want to draw on 2 points that are raised in goal 12. And they are doing more with less and strengthening economic competitiveness, that are both outlined by the United Nations. I think these phrases are both simple, achievable, and are likely to fit in with ours and your businesses. So hopefully I'm going to try and talk about these in the next 10 minutes. I've probably got 10, 15 minutes, but if I start going on a bit longer, Hugh, will you please, you can either cut me off or give me a polite nod. Can you go to the next slide? Thanks. So doing more with less. So by way of an example, to talk about some of these things, In 2001, the Courtauld Commitment, which was launched by an organisation that we're quite involved with called WRAP. It's an organisation that supports the food industry. We make quite a lot of packaging for the food industry. The Courtauld Commitment is there to tackle packaging and food waste. By 2009, its impact resulted in changes that reduced packaging by about 500,000 tonnes across the UK and 3 million tonnes of carbon emissions. And by 2012, further 10% decline in greenhouse emissions, along with about 7 or 8% reduction in waste in the supply chain. So by them focusing on things I'm going to talk about, WRAP have caused quite significant changes in the food industry. Whilst many companies have reduced their packaging costs, of course, through the Courtauld Commitment, there is still plenty of room for improvement though, so I don't want to say they've finished the job yet. So packaging design, to achieve all these sorts of things, for our customers, we like to think about packaging design and packaging materials and removing fillers. So our first step in packaging design is to be resourceful and to set aside what has gone before, basically to completely open our mind. And this means considering the materials of the outer packaging and the inner packaging, but also the manufacturing process that we use, trying to promote repurposing and recycling and end-of-life disposal. And by considering all these things, then we can start thinking about reducing this carbon footprint that Hugh's been talking about, and that all our customers and their customers want. At Aylesbury Box, we spend time, first of all, understanding the product and how it's to be stored and shipped and displayed. And then we outline exactly what's needed to provide adequate protection and tamper-proofing and professional presentation. If there have been any issues in the previous packaging, then we obviously consider all that too. So what I'm trying to say is that we work with our customers to explore ways in which design and labelling encourages all this reuse and repurposing. In some cases, we've even managed to repurpose the packaging for subsequent use. So we just done a design for a laptop where the outer box then converts into a clever little laptop stand. Can you just flick to the next slide, please? Thanks. So considering the packaging materials themselves, it's a switch from plastic to recycled and recyclable materials, which is the most positive step for any company to make. And in the circular economy, the same materials should be used multiple times in ways to minimise waste and keep their use going. So there are huge problems with recycling plastics, but with cardboard, between 80 and 100% of the raw material actually comes from recycled fibres. And the vast majority of the packaging we now make is from 100% recycled materials. And further, we find that the fibres that we send round for recycling typically get used about 12 times. So after use, cardboard packaging is widely collected by local councils, which isn't necessarily the case with plastics. Plastics may be collected, but they're not actually reused. They're often sent for incineration or to landfill. Cardboard is nearly always recycled. According to data from the European Union, actually 84% of cardboard is recycled. The paper we use is sourced from sustainable forests in Europe and North America that have planting schemes that replace the trees that are harvested. And in fact, forests are increasing. In the EU, forests are increasing by about 1.5 million football pitches per year. To encouraging packaging reuse, it's important to limit the variety of materials. use in the packaging, so the plastic windows and foil and things like that, we really try to avoid using. And so if there is something, then we try and make it a straightforward process that the extra materials can be removed at the recycling plant. And finally, if cardboard isn't a suitable product, we ask our prospects to consider aluminium or plastic. Ultimately, though, cost is the overriding decider in some of these decisions, and it's a shame that plastic is sometimes still used, or a proportion of plastic is used. But we consider it a success if we've managed to get rid of a huge percentage of plastics, even if a little bit of plastic is still left over. And can you flip to the next slide, Hugh? So we want to reduce the use of fillers. When standard boxes are used for packaging, you often need to use fillers, obviously, to stop the product rattling around inside the box as it gets shipped through the Royal Mail or through a courier. And fillers are typically bubble wrap, polystyrene, air pockets, and they're all plastic-based packaging primarily. So there are sustainable alternatives that we are constantly pushing. So we have cardboard dividers that we design. We sell branded tissue paper and shredded paper, and we sell a product called Wool Cool, that is a wool product. And yeah, can we have that next slide, please? So it's all about actually cutting costs to a large extent. So sustainable packaging is a benefit to the environment, but I think it actually also makes great business sense. Being efficient with packaging materials and the packaging process definitely reduces costs. We need fewer resources, and this results in less waste, but also, most importantly, it reduces less waste for the customers to manage. And as Hugh pointed out earlier, there are costs associated with getting rid of all this waste. And Hugh, I think, was it the MERCK example you were talking about, where they're factoring in the cost of getting rid of everything. Can I have another slide, please? So we want to help consumer appeal as well. We've got an opportunity here to make something more of the packaging. The consumer of products are increasingly looking at companies that are proactive. So we need to boast about our product, of course, which we can do. And there's a picture here how we've got some very nice graphics for a product. But we're trying to boast about how environmentally friendly our products are. And they're opting for products that are wrapped in paper rather than plastic. They want to do their bit. And I think that they value the manufacturers and the retailers and our clients if they are helping them to protect the environment and to protect the planet. So often consumers don't really know what to do to protect the environment, and if they are led in that direction by the packaging, then they're often very grateful. Can I have the next slide, please? So we don't want products to be returned, because a returned product is quite possibly the most expensive part, the most expensive thing in the whole distribution process. We want it to arrive in pristine condition, and our customers are happy to stop it coming back, primarily to obviously it saves on the postage costs coming back, but primarily it saves on the whole administration and repacking and disposal time for products. The time it takes to process replacements and the damage to a company's reputation is very significant. Can I have another slide? How am I doing on time, Hugh? How are we doing on time here?
Yes, you're doing fine.
Okay, cool. Bespoke packaging, cardboard packaging, it's also can be printed on. Some of the print options are actually very low, and they don't actually add much to the manufacturing cost either. So this helps with promoting the fact that cardboard packaging has a low CO2 manufacturing cost. When we feed cardboard through the machines, there is actually a printing head on the majority of the machines. So just by switching the printing heads on, we don't add much to the manufacturing times. We just have to do a bit of extra setup costs. And of course, as I was saying before, it adds valuable opportunity to give inspiration about reusing, repurposing, and recycling box. Can I have I think this is the final slide now, actually. I've got a little crib sheet here of 3 of my favourite facts I'm going to read out to you. These are 3 that our reps use and really help, I believe, promote cardboard packaging. The first one is European Environment Agency found that 82% of litter found on EU beaches is plastic and only 2% is paper and cardboard. Number 2, the Committee on Climate Change states that 95% of the water used in paper production is cleaned and reused, and carbon emissions in paper mills are continuing to show improvements with every year since 2000, and last year we saw yet another 3% improvement. And my third, the carbon footprint of any product considers the whole life cycle. So materials used, processes, and end-of-life disposals. And the Research Institute of Sweden states that for every tonne of cardboard produced, there is 300 kilograms of CO2 emissions. But by way of comparison, WRAP, the organisation I talked about earlier, states that plastic packaging generates up to 3,000 kilograms of CO2. So in simple terms, plastic packaging produces 10 times the CO2 output of cardboard packaging. So sustainable packaging is about reducing, reusing, repurposing, recycling, cutting costs, boosting brand reputation. And we think it's not about making compromises. I don't think I've had to talk about compromises very much. We just see loads and loads of benefits. It sometimes doesn't work out. Sometimes we get beaten by plastics on actual costs. If a decision is only made on cost, then we might not get it. But we're hoping that businesses are now making their decisions based on a whole variety of other reasons. So talking about costs, I think that's probably a good point for me to pass over now to talk about some of the cost savings of electric vehicles. Can I pass over here?
Yes,
okay.
Dave, over to you.
Hi everybody. I'm very pleased to be putting our point of view from Oxford Office Furniture. And I think that just to give you the brief overview, really, what we're all about, basically, we've always been a very green business. We are very much against landfill. And yes, we do quite a lot of clearances, and we make sure that if it's end of life and we cannot repurpose it or we can't give it to charities, then we make sure that it's disposed of in a correct manner. We also do a lot of work for the university, and they recognise it. There is a cost involved, obviously, to do it properly, but that's what we do. So basically, whether you want a full design layout done, whether you want full facility management, we hope we can provide all of that. We've also got the dedicated fleet of vehicles, as well as expert teams in all sections of the business. And it's all about facilitating the client, taking all the stress and the worry away from them to get the job done. We do obviously quality furniture at the best possible price on the market, and we work with various original manufacturers as well, and we managed to take all their overstocks or their clearance stocks, which is always a win-win situation, that as they're not allowed to sell it to the public sector, rather than them having to dispose of it, which they do, some very nice furniture, we're able to purchase that furniture, and it's a win-win situation, both for the manufacturer, our customer, and of course, a small margin for ourselves. We're probably sitting on about £600,000 worth of furniture in our warehouses at the present time. The majority of it is brand new, or very high quality second user, which I have to say in lots of times is often better than if you go out and buy new. And of course, if you buy from us, invariably 99.9% of the time we will deliver and install with our own dedicated teams. So, you know, that's how that works. And if you've got existing furniture that you want to match, do you want an extra desk or an extra chair, the chances are we would have that in stock, which is probably we've taken from somewhere, and it will match whatever you have perfectly. So no need to change your whole office. And of course, anything to do with furniture is what we do, and we love to support charities, which we tend to do on an ongoing basis. Next slide, Hugh, please. So apart from being green with what we do in the overall concept of the business, 10 years ago I was lucky enough to be a pioneer on the electric Mini, and our claim to fame on that, my wife and I, Margaret and I, presented an electric Mini to the then Prime Minister Gordon Brown and the Cabinet. So the fact that the experience never left me, was always eager to get back into an electric vehicle, because we realised from those very early days it was definitely the future, and the future is electric without any doubt whatsoever. So we decided that as soon as we could afford an electric vehicle, we would go down that route. So we've shared our experiences time and time again. We've done various talks, and it's all about education, because people really just cannot get their head around just how fantastic the electric vehicles are. Not just because the fact they're electric vehicle, not just the fact that they're environmentally friendly, which we're very proud to be able to do our deliveries, but the way in which they're accepted to everybody. When I say that, it's a very broad statement, but we're finding that our clients are getting more and more into the fact that we can deliver with zero emissions. So by sharing that knowledge, we meet interesting people, like the fact that I'm able to talk to you today about electric vehicles, because we've been there and done it. So we now have a total of 5 electric vehicles. We have another one on order, but obviously that's going to be the new electric Mini. We had to have one of those, didn't we, really? And as you can see in the photos, you can see the Bridges Sigh. We've got 4 Nissan Combis. So when you look at those vehicles, you would think they were vans. They're 5-seaters and 7-seaters, and they've got see-through vinyl graphics on them, and they've all got tow bars attached to them as well. So if you see in the middle photograph, myself with the Tesla, there's a small trailer that goes on the back. So the Combis can be used obviously as a people carrier. It can also be used as a crew bus. So the other interesting things are that they are 40 kilowatt batteries in those, and we can go to London and back, but I'll come on to more on that later on one charge. But the important thing is that the payload of the vehicle is 700 kilos, and the trailer that goes on the back, an unbraked trailer, you can take 480 kilos, which includes the weight of the trailer. So overall, you're actually getting as much payload as you would do in a Transit or a Sprinter. We've got a few customers which insist on delivery in the electric vehicles. One college in particular, which is Lady Margaret Hall, and then we've also got Oxford City Council. We've done lots of zero emission deliveries as well. But you find quite a lot of pictures of items that we've done on our Facebook page if you want to know more. So you'll notice the Tesla. We bought this one prior to getting the Nissans, because we needed a replacement car. We did all the costings. We had we still have a 4x4. And once we worked out all the costs and implications, we could have this Tesla X, and it basically costs out about £100 a month if you take all the costs of savings of fuel and maintenance and everything else. It's just a win-win situation. And interestingly enough, if you went and purchased a electric van, whether it be a Sprinter or a Renault or something like that, you'd be looking at a similar cost, believe it or not, to the cost of the Tesla, which probably sounds a bit crazy. But the good news is that although you've got good payload with the Tesla anyway, you can tow up to 2.25 tons on the back of it, and you don't even know it's there. And it's absolutely brilliant because it's, 1.5 times or more than the payload of what I mentioned before, the Sprinter or the Transit. So as it stands at the moment, the Transits and box low loaders wouldn't work for us, because if you get a battery one, you're only going to do something like 70 miles at best. And it's just too discouraging. Whereas the Tesla will give something like 275 miles without a trailer, and probably 2/3 of that with a trailer towing on the back. And of course, with not throwing away all the emissions, it's great. We recently done a job to Exeter in the small trailer, believe it or not, which is in that photograph, on the back of the Tesla where I'm standing. So we filled the car up with furniture, we filled the trailer up with furniture. It was a very urgent job. The client phoned me up on the Tuesday, wanted some furniture on the Wednesday for a new executive that was starting. And the only way we could do it, because we were busy with all our crew, I said to the client, I can come to Exeter, but you'll have to do the installation, which I did and he did, and it was really good to be able to respond to the client. When I got back, I worked out the costings, and from Bicester to Exeter with the trailer and back, it was £18 in fuel costs. So, it just sort of gives you a win-win situation. So let's go for the next slide if we can, Hugh. So I think the easiest way to explain this is that, we've got some examples here of 12p a kilowatt and the range. So we can go from Oxford or Bicester to London and back on one charge in the summer. If we go in the winter, we could still do that possibly, but we wouldn't put the heating on. So, we learn about what it is that we actually do. But when people really can't get their heads around the fact you've got no car tax, you've got absolutely no congestion charge in London with an electric vehicle. If you park, you pay on a meter in central London 10 minutes, which will give you 4 hours, but then you'll probably be able to find a free parking space with free electricity. There's 1 or 2 apps that one can get to do that. So when we say 12p per kilowatt, we're showing really that we can go there and back to London for £4.80. If you are taking Octopus Energy at the moment, is 5p per unit between 12:30 and 4:30, which means that you can see you could actually go to London and back cheaper than you could get wear and tear out of a push bike. So that's if you haven't got your own solar, of course, which would make it work. So I could give you all sorts of examples of how you can actually save money by going down the electric route. I think that when the combis came up to their 12 months or 18,000 mile service, the four we had was £85 each, including that, which was a deal we struck when we actually bought the vehicles. And just as another pointer, the reason why we went down the combi route, the price difference between a van and a 5-seater at that time was 500 quid, or a 7-seater was £750. So it was, to us, it just made sense to do that, because by buying those units, we'll have a higher residual value when they come to be sold. And also we've got the back doors which hinge upwards, so if it's raining, that you can obviously stay a little bit dry. So that's really where I want to be. It's an overview. I'm really very happy for anybody to make contact with me after this webinar. If they want to know more, or they want to come over and have a test drive or something like that, obviously the social distancing being where it is. So yes, we're very, very happy with what we're doing. We're very happy we're leading the field, and people are learning by our experiences and buying trailers for their electric vehicle. Hugh, that's it. Ready for the question and answers.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Dave. A couple more slides from me. So I'm going to cover this very briefly. There is a very strong business case for sustainability. Dave has been talking about the savings for electric vehicles, but generally there are other areas of cost saving as well. Energy is a big one. There are huge potential savings there. Water is another area. Waste, if we could reduce that, there is a cost of waste that can be significantly reduced, as is the cost of materials, if we can find a way of being more sustainable there. But not only the cost savings, the other benefits that come through here are improved reputation. The fact that buyers aren't just looking at cost, they're also looking at other things that in their purchasing decisions, particularly around social impact. Businesses can generate economic value by identifying and addressing social problems that intersect with their business. So, that you see lots of examples of this. And I mentioned Red Ink earlier, who are planting trees. Obviously, their product is predominantly paper, and they see a way of generating value by doing that, and it helps to enhance their reputation. So there are win-wins there. And also for B2B transactions, any customers are going to be particularly interested in their suppliers' sustainability credentials. As Luke mentioned, waste is a huge issue. And if there is a way of their suppliers having better sustainability credentials than their competitors for that particular piece of business, then it does give them a significant competitive advantage, which is going to increase as time goes by, and as buyers are going to become more and more interested in this area. So here's an example from Unilever. They are very keen to promote their sustainability record, and they have been tracking this since 2008. So since 2008, they've saved 122 million euros by improving water efficiency, 733 million by improving energy efficiency, and 223 million by using less materials and producing less waste. Now, the majority of that is in material costs, but there is still a significant waste disposal cost as well. Obviously, with other organisations, that may break down differently. The other interesting thing they're doing is they have sustainability brands that are growing faster than the rest of their business. So I think the message here from Unilever and plenty of other organisations too is that there is really significant benefit in driving the sustainability agenda, and it could be argued that failing to act at this stage could seriously harm your business moving forward. So what about the next steps? So there are lots of questions that come out of this. So as a business, what should I do first? Should I look at waste and CO2, or should I look at something else? Are there innovations that we can introduce as part of this? Should we be looking at electric vehicle, or no, not should we? How should we be looking at electric vehicles and introducing them? What type of functions should we be looking for them to perform? Can we find in the business some champions that would promote and take the lead on particular areas of sustainability? Are there grants available? Now, I've got a separate slide on this, but there are lots of grants available, and I'm grateful that actually Oxfordshire Green Tech has been very supportive of this, and Low Carbon Hub that's associated with the Oxfordshire area, and Low Carbon Workspaces in Buckinghamshire, Hertfordshire and Berkshire have been very supportive as well. But there are grants available. They are for specific things. And we can help potentially direct anybody who may be interested in that. So how can, other questions that an organization might have is, how can I engage our key stakeholders? What is important to them? And then finally, how am I going to measure and report? All of these things are really key questions that any organization should be asking. So there are people to talk to. Dave at Oxford Office Furniture, Luke at Aylesbury Box, and me, Hugh. Dale has put his contact details from Oxford Green Tech on here as well, but I have a separate slide here which is intended to provide a little bit more background into who potentially to talk to. If you're not covered by this slide, or you're in a different region, then we can see what we can do to try and help you to find the right organization for you to work with. But there are grants available. Clearly there is some stimulus packages available for various different things, and there are plenty of options to look at. So, are there any questions? This is our contact details for myself, for Luke, and for Dave. So I can also make the slides available to anybody who's interested. And I'm going to just see if there are any questions. So any questions from anybody? You can use the Q&A on the chat bar. Okay. So Dave and Luke, I think probably there aren't any questions at this stage. So I would like to thank everybody for participating. I hope it's been useful and valuable. Please do contact us if there's anything else that we can help you with. And I hope you, oh, there's a question.
There's a question just come in, Hugh, from...
Yes, I could see it. So the question is, how have you managed to communicate to your potential customers that more ethical / sustainable products won't necessarily cost them more money?
Can I answer that?
Yes, please do.
Because one of the things that I didn't mention, Hannah, thanks for putting the question through. We have found that the route that we have gone down, we have met some lovely people on the journey, and that's why we're happy to do what we're doing, who have embraced what we've done, and it's actually generated a huge amount of business for us without us having to go out and sell anything. People have come up to us and saying, you know, can you please give me a price for this, give me a price for that. So, and we're always saying to people, you know, there's no additional cost for zero emission deliveries. So a good question, Hannah.
Can I give you my answer on that question too?
Yes, please, Luke.
Well, we do it in practical terms. We have a very hands-on approach to doing it. So we send a sales rep to a customer's site, to their factory or their packing facility, and we talk about all the things that I talked about in our presentation about how we come up with a good solution that's going to be environmentally friendly. We then take that away and we design, and then we manufacture a one-off or a very small batch of the new design or the new solution for them. And then we take that to the factory, to the premises, and we try it out. And we go through a slightly iterative process of improvement while we trial and then redesign, resample, and then trial again. So it's always a very hands-on approach to come up with the most sustainable solution and to demonstrate in practical terms what the financial benefits are.
Okay, thank you very much, Luke. Hannah's also got another question here. So the second question from her is, big businesses like Unilever can save millions and millions because of the benefits of economies of scale. Would there be an appetite in the Oxfordshire area for a joined up buying scheme for small businesses to collaboratively buy sustainable materials, electricity, etc., to benefit further from cost savings? That's an interesting question. So this is what you're suggesting, Hannah, is forming some sort of cooperative. I don't feel, I'm not sure I'm qualified to answer that question.
I think it's another good question, Hannah. It sort of certainly ticks the box, and I think that this is going to be directed back to you as Green Tech, and you know, as we're moving Green Tech forward, it's something that we can add into the book of members to share, like with discounts for people, etc., as we've actually done before, we've discussed before. So yeah, another great point. Thank you.
Yeah, I really like the question, Hannah. It's great thinking that these things can be achieved with lots of people get involved. I think that we're planning to, Hugh's planning to lead maybe these events more frequently, and as we get more people involved and more interest, I think that's when something like this may naturally happen. I think those are my thoughts, but it's a great question, Hannah. Thank you.
Yes, exactly. So Hannah, we should probably have a talk about this and see what we can come up with, and see how we can move that forward, because it's definitely worth asking that question. Great. Well, it's now bang on 1 o'clock. So thank you all for joining us. Thank you for the